Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. I'm Paul. I'm here with Alan as always.
Hey.
And this week we have a guest for you all. We have Steve Demedash of Demedash Effects. How's it going, Steve?
Going good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad we overcame our technical difficulties to actually get to talk here today. And we also overcame all of our busy schedules to finally get together here. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad we got to do this finally.
Yeah. So I just want to get started with some softballs here because I'm excited to chat with you. I was so stoked when you agreed to come talk with us. So the one I want to just loft out there is, how did you get into building pedals? Because everyone I know has a different route there. How did it happen for you?
Kind of a long story, I guess, or maybe a short story. I don't know how to make short. I don't know. But basically, been playing guitar since I was 10, I think. Year 2000, I remember. Was really into the Offspring at the time, and the song "The Kids Aren't All Right." I loved the intro to that. I just wanted to be able to make that sound. So I convinced my parents to get me a guitar and an amp, and just getting over a sore throat, by the way. Sorry if my voice is really scratchy, but so grew up doing that. Got really into metal and everything in high school, and when I went to university, I kind of just did a general first year. I didn't go straight out of high school. I went snowboarding for a couple of years in band first, but then when I went to, I did a first general year, did a bunch of humanities, but then was thinking, okay, well, there's no such thing as a philosophy factory. What do I actually do to get money? And it's like, okay, engineer, I'm good at math. Engineering's good. And hey, maybe I do electrical. I can figure out how amplifiers work. That's cool. So I kind of do that and realized, that's very old technology. They don't teach that anymore. But still learned all the stuff that you learn in electrical engineering. And some of it very close to the exam date. Some of it, close to the semester. But and I mean, okay, so while I was, and I think my interest in playing music kind of ebbed and flowed based on how busy I was doing other things. I was in a couple bands during university. Probably the most fun one, I played banjo and fiddle, and it was just
oh, nice.
a completely acoustic band, but we played really fast. So it was just a lot of fun. Kind of folk, but
folk
with
punk.
punk energy. Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So graduated university. When I started working at a company that made, okay, I'm not going to get deep into this, but it's computing platforms for freight trains, basically. So onboard network, localized, and then data storage, data processing, optimizing fuel usage, all that stuff. And so it was really technical, and it was 45 minutes away, so long commutes. And I just kind of had those commutes to kind of just think, listen to audiobooks and think. And it's oh man, kind of started thinking about, it'd be cool to start doing the pedals again. I did a bit in university just on Vero board. But it'd be cool to do that again. And it's I kind of had just sold something on Reverb, so I thought of that. I was that might be actually a better platform than using my local. In Canada, we have what's called Kijiji, which is basically Craigslist in the States. And so so I started doing that, and I had picked up graphics in university. I ran a humor magazine, so kind of learned Adobe Illustrator and all those programs. And started doing that and putting graphics on things now, using water slide decals and just kind of putting them on Reverb. And then I picked up my old Instagram account and started just posting what I was working on in the shop on the weekends and the evenings. And then, I got to use those 45-minute drives to kind of just think about circuitry and just okay, what would be cool here? And then just kind of innovate in that way. Yeah. I don't know. I find boredom leads to that kind of, creative headspace. And it picked up. I didn't expect it to, but it picked up. I think largely due to the graphics, because on social media, graphics are the first thing anybody notices. And then if it looks good, you listen to it. If you like how it sounds, maybe you learn more about it. Maybe you pick it up. Yeah, fortunately, I passed all those tests for everybody that bought something, and that was enough to get to the point where like um, bigger accounts on Instagram kind of were posting my stuff and basically doing advertising for me, and I started getting overwhelmed with orders. Had to do a wait list for the T120, and eventually had something where I calculated it would take me about 6 months to get through all the names on it, or not even all the names. I figured it out in a more realistically, if only 2/3 of the people here buy, I'll still take me 6 months to complete all these orders, and I'm getting 4 signups a day. So
Wow.
after a while, it's I couldn't balance that and work, and I was like, I'm really bored of what I'm doing at work. I'd been on the same project for 2 years, so I think I'm just gonna take a chance on this. And yeah,
I like how you basically your interests and things you had background in, and then boredom really is your answer to how you got here, which is
yeah.
pretty cool. And you mentioned something there at the tail end that accidentally runs into a series of interviews we've done recently, which we have jokingly said that the tone is in the aesthetic of stuff. And I'll be honest, when I first ever saw any of your pedals, it was one of those things where I've looked at, I mean, I am on every gear forum and looking at things all the time, and I was very, very attracted to the look of your pedals as the first thing. I was like, man, that looks cool. And then I dove in a bit, started listening to some stuff. I was like, and they sound great. So
yeah, that's exactly it, right?
yeah, you know, there's stuff that can look cool and not sound good. You've nailed both there. If I may flatter you a bit as we talk here.
Well, it's like a song. Maybe you like the hook, so you listen to it again, and you're like, oh, the words are actually really cool to this.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
The first thing or the second thing. Yeah.
Yeah. They do say that, don't judge a book by its cover, but I do think you can judge an effects pedal by its design. So that's something
I think a better way to phrase it is okay, I don't actually know quippy way to say this, but don't do all the judging by the cover, but I think it's fine to just dismiss something that you think is ugly, and whether or not it sounds good, you're not going to like it. But if you like how it looks,
I think that's very fair. And also, I mean, you're another Canadian builder, Fairfield Circuitry. They have those just bare bones circuits, and they make incredible pedals that don't have any design to them other than just stamps. So stamped metal.
I mean, that in itself is a design, and it's a really good one. So
it's true. It works. I wanted to talk a bit about the T120 Deluxe, because I did get one before we talked here, which it worked out with us reschedule. And I have a video actually that I did yesterday shooting it that I will be coming out shortly here. But so obviously the T120, I think, was the pedal that the original T120 was the one I first kind of saw of you all. What went into, the T120 Deluxe as the kind of next iteration there? Obviously we added tap tempo, but want to hear kind of what else, what you take into account when you're doing a next version of a pedal like that.
I think that's the only one, T120 and T120 Deluxe. Those are the only ones I've explicitly iterated to a V2, and there are differing opinions on this. I think where I don't do this anymore, but when I was just starting, I was kind of this is kind of a mix between this is kind of an artisan thing, and so I'd constantly iterate the circuit of the T120. And make little improvements along the way. But it wasn't until I was okay, I'm going to add some new controls to this that I was okay, I need to label this as a separate thing now. And I don't iterate in that way anymore with things so much. It's just, there's, I guess, I don't know. It's a vibes thing. I feel once your profiles to a certain place, you have to, you have to know what you're getting. So, I try not to do that as much, but I labeled it a V2 because of that. And I think same thing, if I'm going to make a big overhaul to something, I'm not going to make noticeable changes without relabeling something. That's basically it. I'm always kind of playing with stuff, but if I'm okay, I've got a batch of things I want to change in this circuit, and I think this is worth purchasing. I don't know. What is the? I guess if I think that somebody who owns the original, if the changes are enough that they I think they'd want to get like the new one, and I don't feel like that would be a ripoff. Then I'd label it a V2.
Oh, that
Like
makes sense.
it has to be worth upgrading for. Yeah.
No, and it makes sense to kind of like iterating along the way. Obviously, eventually the circuit doesn't resemble the original because you've
Yeah.
done enough tweaks. And I mean, I will say, so I had listened to a lot of video of the original T120, and I was like into it. I love like tapey, warbly delays. Anyhow, that's always something I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of. But for me, I always like I need a tap tempo. I like need a tap tempo. So when I saw that you had the deluxe with the tap tempo, I was like, okay, well, I need to get my hands on that at some point.
Oh yeah, and that was so friggin' hard. That was so friggin' hard to do. It was crazy. But I'm so happy. Like that's one of the things I'm most proud of, getting to work.
Getting it, and it's. I know you said on the website, and it did carry out. It is incredibly accurate as a tap tempo. It changes really quickly. It seems like it nails everything. So great work there.
I think it's unnecessarily accurate. Like for how sloppy tap tempo can be. Like I really I did not phone that one in. I could have been a lot more hand wavy than I was. It's not programmed is the thing. Like, I mean, it is obviously there's a microcontroller on the board, and that's what generates the, crazy modulation and everything, and the randomized waves, and what controls like the tempo. But the delay is not going through a computer. So it's like a self-contained like echo chip, and the echo time is very based on like the resistance coming off of a pin. Like it like sets the amount of current that's flowing out of it, and that sets the clock speed of the chip, and that's how fast the samples are passed through. And
see,
so I use
that's
like,
the kind of expertise we need to have, because Alan and I, we always joke, both of us have like a technical understanding of what's going on under the hood of pedals, and we can get into.
I just pretend to have a technical understanding of what's going on.
Basically, okay, so to like make it like a little simpler, there are two components that they vary widely from one to the next, and so you can't match them, and so you have to calibrate. And so there's a calibration routine that gets run, and it was so complicated to get that running in a way that was simple for me to operate and was clear in what the results were. And it took like 6 months to nail it, and when I finally did, I was so proud of it. I'm still proud of it. But yeah, because of that calibration routine, every unit is like very precise.
Interesting. No, that's cool. And hey, I mean, I'm really impressed with it. I dig it a lot. I have been hoarding it because Alan and I, with the way we do things, we send pedals back and forth a lot when we get them for the channel. And I have not let him have this one yet. So we'll let him play with it next.
Yeah, you're a little bit greedy.
Someday.
Yeah, someday. No, someday I'm really intrigued by it because I am a sucker for anything that comes out stereo. So you had me at, mono and stereo out with that just as it was. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I can do with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool,
it sounds really nice.
A lot of cool stuff in there. So and I do appreciate, Steve. So in your email originally when we were talking back and forth, I love the fact that you just have out there what's coming. That is not the typical of this industry where everybody teases like a little picture of a single knob or like a blacked out picture. So I loved when you said that, and I went to the site. You got quite a few things in the works. I'm really excited about the new iteration on the retro harmonic, and then just wanted to talk a bit kind of about the other stuff you have coming down the pipe here, because you got some cool pedals in the works.
Oh yeah, retro harmonics. That's been like an idea in the back of my head since like 2018 or 2019. And it was just like, okay, I've got this idea, but I have no idea how to pull it off. So, between then and now, it's basically been building up the skills to do it. And yeah, no, it's like I'm really liking what I have right now. So
yeah, the machine, the way you have it laid out, from what I understand, with the like the polyrhythmic engine, just using those words, it seems like a really powerful tool you're building there.
Yeah. So I think from the like name retro harmonic, you get like it's a harmonic trem. And just for those that don't know, harmonic trem is a regular trem. It's amplitude modulation. It's like the your signal, like the volume of it goes up and down. With a harmonic trem, your signal gets split into two. One, all the highs get filtered out. One, all the lows get filtered out. And then they're both like amplitude modulated the same way, but in opposition to one another. So you get all like the treble volume, then it kind of they crossfade into all the bass volume, and it kind of gives a very like vibey sound without the pitch bending of vibrato.
I really like taking the science of everything you just said and boiling it down to it gets a very vibey sound. That's how I talk about pedals. So
yeah. But I mean, like the how of it is where the interesting stuff comes in. It's like, okay, well, this is like the basic premise, but given that we're not working with vacuum tubes and just anymore, we've got like a microcontroller that can run this modulation. What else can we do? Let's have it so they're not completely in direct opposition. They can go together. It's just amplitude modulation, or let's just put that on a knob, and so you can put them any amount spread apart you want between nothing and full. Or let's like set up some polyrhythms, have the treble do 3 beats in the time that the bass does 2, or 5/4, or 3/1, 7 over whatever. So yeah, or you can flip it around and have the bass do a certain number of beats while the treble keeps the rhythm. And what happens when you do that is, depending on what your like lower division is, like 5/4, so every 4 beats, they line up again and go completely silent. But in between that, they're you hear them both like diverging and reunifying, and just sets up these like really cool like patterns underneath what you're playing, especially if you've got like a hanging chord or something.
Man.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, just looking at the controls, because I did do a quick brief. I know you sent over sort of the like rough idea of the operator's manual.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you could have a lot of fun for a long time with just different. Like, I feel like I could get stuck on one setting with that pedal forever. Which is something that I always try to avoid doing by just like, oh, I found the sound I like. No, wait, let's try the other one.
Oh yeah, this is one like yeah.
Yeah, you have expression control too. I was seeing there. Expression control is going to be on this one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, there are 8 knobs on this, and 2 of them are like segmented. So like you turn a bit, and they've got little notches. So they've got 11 settings on each. That's like wave shape and polyrhythm. And just the other week, I was like, well, you can like, there's an alternate setting for polyrhythms to kind of like reverse, so bass is going faster. Let's add another 11 wave shapes. So I started adding more wave shapes. So now there's 22.
22 wave shapes?
Gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, to be fair, some of them are more like patterns, like that take place over the course of like 8 beats or 4 beats. So it'll be like, sawtooth, sign, or something like that. Or I've got like a 3 or 4 pattern that's like
yeah.
So things like that. So did that, and then, but okay, so besides those 2 knobs, like there's the upper 2 rows that are all just continuous. So you've got like drive, tone, which is the balance of bass and treble volumes, level, modulation depth, rate, and the phase, which is the offset of the 2 LFOs. So which lets you do, at 0, it's amplitude trem because they're lined up. At full, it's full harmonic trem because they're completely misaligned. And any of those knobs can be ramped. Like you can like ramp them from their current position to the top or from current position to the bottom. You can hold down the tap switch to just like do what I'm calling like a stretch ramp. Like it just stretches all the way up, then just stays there until you release. You release it and it comes back down. Or you hold both foot switches down for like, I don't know, I have like 2 seconds, and it just starts like, I call it a bounce ramp. It goes from the current knob position, either up or down, however you have each knob configured, and then bounces back to the bottom, bounces back up, bounces back down, just keeps going until you like configure it to stop. Basically, same way you started it. And when you plug in an expression pedal, it doesn't ramp anymore. Now your expression pedal is controlling where all those ramping parameters are between the current knob setting and either the max or the min, however you have them set up.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can like set any of them, just not ramp at all, just ignore.
Okay.
And yeah, and if you have nothing set up to ramp, and you put an expression pedal in, that takes over the LFO. So now you're just like controlling the LFO itself, which is, I think, the idea being it'd be cool to do that if you're using like CV input, just external LFO, and then your phase offset and everything will still work.
Man.
Yeah,
So,
that is.
So basically, it's a simple trim pedal. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a very basic, vanilla trim pedal. No, there's a lot in here, Steve. I am excited just based on looking at it. I was stoked on just how many options you had, and then what you just described with the control over it. I desperately want to run this and my Chase Bliss Mood next to each other just to create really weird vibey noises now. That seems that seems like a combo that I would love to create, especially creating patterns that go into like the micro looper and hit the envelope of the loop of the mood is now what I want to do. So that sounds absolutely phenomenal. Anything else before we move to the chorus that you want to talk about on that one?
Yeah, actually, like one of my thing I really like about this, I don't remember when I came up with this idea, but I'm really happy I did because I think it's really fun, is you can use it as a standalone drive pedal as well. So like when it's like engaged as a trem, like the top three knobs drive tone level, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can, once you turn off, put it back to bypass. If you hit the tap switch, it goes into a different mode. It's like just drive mode. So your signal is sent through the circuit, but it's not modulated. It's just the drive tone level controls. And you change them, and because it's all analog signals, but it's all voltage controlled. So there's microcontroller like that's keeping everything, it remembers everything. So it's going to remember where the knobs were last time you're in drive mode. And then once you can go directly from there into trem mode, and it'll go back to wherever they were last time you're in trem mode. And then you can just disengage from trem mode, and it's like going back to a different drive pedal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And there's two types of preamp in here, like two preamp settings. Like one is like more of a one is like meant to be like clean, and it'll still it's not perfectly clean if you got it just like cranked, but it's like pretty clean all the way through. And the drive is kind of like, it kind of hits like kind of lower to mid gain clipping. It clips a lot earlier, and it sounds really nice. And so you can have the two set up differently. Like the way I'm going to have it come stock is trem is in clean, but like the bypass drive is in like drive. Wow. And so you can like toggle between, and it's like, it sounds like two completely different things. It's really fun.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute dream. I'm like mouth watering as I did not gather all of that because one, I sometimes need a pedal in front of me to actually like understand what it does as I read through a manual. But this thing sounds phenomenal. I'm so excited. I'm really bummed that we didn't get to work out to hear samples right now. That's what I'm bummed about. But we'll make another thing happen here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I jokingly said that it was a simple trem, and I said that sarcastically because it's anything but. And I love that you've taken a classic effect and you've definitely personalized it and made it your own. But you've added in. I mean, I'm looking online here because you can see it. Anybody wants to see what we're talking about here, it's on Steve's page on demedasheffects.com. But I'm looking at the layout of what you've suggested, and you've packed so much into a small pedal, but it also like it still seems extremely user friendly. But then also at the same time, it's like
top of mind.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I don't think everybody keeps it top of mind. I think that a lot of times you get a designer who wants to really just go over the moon with what it can do, and then you realize at the end of it, oh, wait a second, it's really hard to use. But like you've explained so much that this thing can do, and I'm looking at it, and even just the layout that you have online, it looks like it will be really easy to use, but with endless hours of finding something new and exciting. And I also love that you have preset slots in it so that when a user finds something they really love, they can save it.
Yeah. There's like 2 on board, and then I don't remember off the top of my head how many there are via MIDI. I think like maybe 25.
Yeah.
And and like it's MIDI clock compatible. Been like testing with that and having it like, keep synced, and like that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
going to
don't.
be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I use the disaster area micro clock for all of those things. So I was actually, when I saw that that was part of this pedal, I was pretty pumped on that because I like to be able to have certain things dialed exactly, and then other things I kind of like to tap in and make them a little messy. But having, especially with the like patterns and wave shapes on here, I feel like being able to actually sync it to a specific clock could make this like a really powerful creative tool. It's really sweet, really great.
Oh yeah, no.
Really excited to see this thing.
Yeah, no, and just like using it with other things, it's like it really benefits from like latching onto the rhythm of something else. Like it just works really well to kind of like add to and enhance a pattern that already like rhythmic pattern that's already happening.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm dreaming right now about like running a synth with a sequencer into it to get it real trippy too. So,
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
well, yeah, that's these videos will occur at some point on the Pedal Collaborative channel. So everybody stay tuned to all the things Alan and I are dreaming up as Steve is telling us about these new pedals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The other one that you've got in the works is your Solaris analog trichorus. Can you tell us more about that one?
It's the prettiest thing anybody's ever heard.
The end. Enough said.
I'm quoting somebody else on that, so I don't feel as like
there you go.
No, I've taken to a bunch of demo shows, and it's always like it tends to be the belle of the ball of the board that I bring, and it's one of the things like, yeah, no, it's I love it. I love the sound. I love the look. It's completely over the top in many ways. There's like 17 LEDs on the front panel, like they kind of look like stars.
I see that.
Yeah, I was noticing that in the design. I was like, are those LEDs or are those just like elements?
Yeah,
But
so
those all they're all LEDs.
yeah, so what happened? So it's I'll explain what it is, and then that'll kind of like make more sense. The display will make more sense. So a tri-chorus. These were, I think, like the original was on something called the ARP or the Selena synth, 70s or 80s. I'm not sure. Not a big synth history nerd, but this one was always like, that's a really cool idea. And it just gave a string section sound to the synth. That was the idea. It made it sound like there was, a chorus of, instruments playing. And how it did that was there's 3 delay lines in parallel, and they each get like modulated by a wave that's offset from the other. So none of them are at the same place in like pitch wise at any given point.
Yeah.
And so they've got like a little like a slow wave carrying a faster wave. So it's like kind of like and yeah, it gives this just really lush sound where everything kind of like the movement sort of fades to the background and you just hear this. It's not like a chorus like you think a chorus. It's more like a reverb almost. It's atmospheric.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it sounds like reverb. I'm just saying it almost fulfills the same role as a reverb would, in that it's more of just creating this big, dense like blanket. And so like I've always been enamored by the concept of this, and I always thought it'd be really cool. It's like using modern technology to shrink one down and put it on your pedal board.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been batting around this idea for almost as long as I was retro harmonic, and I've tried it in like using different things and doing it in different ways, and finally hit on one that sounded good. It's one of those things, you try for a bit and it's like, that didn't work. I'll come back to it later. And then, a few months later, a year later, you do. And so one of these times it finally it sounded really good. And I was like, okay, I'm latching on then now. And so been a couple of years now, I think, maybe a year and a half since then. And I've iterated it, and it's just, so what I did was I figured, okay, I'm going to use digital modulation, but just have this fully analog signal path, use classic BBDs, like any analog chorus would, but be able to feed it, like each of them, their own waveform, and not have to derive that in an analog way like the original did, which took up a ton of space, that LFO section. So this can do a bunch of different kind of chorus sounds. It's got that Selena thing in it, but it's also got like this really like flangey, phasey sounding one where they're all like have the same waveform, but the waveform for each goes to a different depth each time. So they're like the pitch raises together, but they're pitched slightly off of each other. So you just get this like flangey sound.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's a staircase mode where it's like there's like randomization. There's this dual through zero thing where, you know, the middle one, if you're using stereo, one of them like pans hard left, one of them pans hard right, and the other is center.
Yeah.
So this is a cool one. Stereo is like this through zero thing where the one that's center, you just like flip the phase of the signal is flipped, and then the other two like slowly kind of pass through it, and like so the audio cancels on the side, and you can kind of offset like how the like those two move, so it can happen at the same time or it can happen at different times, and it's a really like weird stereo effect. It's really cool. And and then there's one mode that like ramps the speed up and down continuously. And then like it's got this really nice preamp in it. You can have it so you can like I figure if you're using line level, you know, you dial that down so it doesn't clip as much. Or if you're using a hot instrument with hot pickups, same thing. Or you turn it up and it just sounds really good with a bit of like if you kind of just like slam the preamp, it just adds to the kind of harmonics that get played with.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like Steve, in both these pedals, like there are several things that you've brought to like discussion here where I didn't realize it could do that is a question I love. That's also I love when you get to hear that about a pedal. I didn't realize it could do that. But also there's a lot in here that like it's just the kind of stuff that like I've even seen people in forums like anybody know a chorus pedal that can do insert thing here? And it seems like you have like answered every one of those forum questions with this pedal.
Yeah.
So it's pretty full featured.
Well, I mean, like that's kind of the things. Like, yeah, it's like it gets a bit into the weeds, the electronics, and like the philosophy, I guess, in like explaining how it does it or why it does it. But having that approach of this is how that effect works. How can we fuck with that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that.
Like, how can we? Okay, so like getting a full grasp on how the effect is created. It's like, okay, how can we like have something that you can shift a little bit to make something new out of that? And I'd say like the Solaris, it's one of probably the only pedal I have that has discrete modes in it. Like it's got 6 modes. It's got a 3-way toggle switch, and if it's on, you hold down the foot switch and toggle. It's gets to an alternate version of that mode, which very hard to explain, but like very easy to do. I don't know. I'll get the wording right eventually before I put out a manual. But like the retro harmonics, the T120, the T60, all these other ones, it's like they all have continuous controls. Like I try not to have discrete modes because it's just I think way cooler to have this like create this like map that you can go anywhere on and find your own. Oh, this sounds like this setting rather than just having a switch you flick to get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, so, go ahead, Alan. Go ahead. I'm just drooling right now looking at this.
I know. Oh man. You have those two in development right now, the Retro Harmonic and the Solaris. And I see on the website that the Solaris says expected late 2024, early 2025. Obviously, as everybody probably knows, like releasing something new is, time has no essence to it. You do it when it's right. But are you still looking at that time frame, or are we pushing it back a little bit? I'm mostly asking.
That's that's my ideal time frame. Like I'm not putting it out until like I'm fully happy with it, and I am almost there.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there are very minor things. One of the main things is like manufacturing the enclosures. Okay, so actually I didn't come back around to this. Is the lights on it?
Yes.
So there's those 3 LFOs that get generated that modulate the delay lines, and so I basically have those kind of like get tapped off and sent to the lights. And the lights are kind of interspersed, but there's like 3 basically groups.
Yeah.
So depending on what kind of mode you're in, like they're gonna behave differently. If you're like you turn the rate up, they're gonna like sparkle faster.
Yeah.
They reflect what's going on with the LFOs. And yeah, no, it just looks really cool, like twinkling lights. And also like the mix knob lights up when you turn it on. So
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
All right. I mean,
yeah,
honestly, going back to aesthetics being a big deal, this could actually, it won't, but it could sound horrible, and it doesn't matter because it's going to look amazing.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I think like tone, it's okay. I think you said tone is in the aesthetics. It's like there's a grain of truth to that. I think tone is subjective and perceptual.
Absolutely.
And like having, I mean, perception, it's like how taste is partly smell. It's like, well, maybe sense isn't always just one thing.
Oh no, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you're absolutely right. And I think obviously everybody from an aesthetic standpoint, we are all individuals, so we have different opinions on what we find to be pleasing. The same thing is with sound. Like we all have differing opinions on what effects and what sound is pleasing to ourselves. And I think, marrying the two together, when it works, and having something that aesthetically is pleasing and sonically is pleasing is just kind of that's the money right there.
Yeah. And no, I really like making things look as good as I can. I just want to make things that look really cool. Like,
Yeah.
and there's also a bit of a fun challenge too. I feel like I have an established aesthetic, um, but I don't know how to describe it or pin it down. So it's kind of fun to try to make things fit into it without being able to actually say what that, generalize what that aesthetic is. Like,
Yeah.
retro packaging is kind of retro packaging. That's kind of how I think about it, but that's wishy-washy. So it's fun to kind of like try to make everything look unified without looking the same.
Well, I think you've accomplished that because you look at your
Thank you.
lineup and it's there.
Yeah, I feel like I could pick out a pedal and be like, that is a Demedash pedal. But and I gotta say too, the packaging for the T120 coming with all the like tape, like the like ripped up
Yeah.
tape, which I don't think I told Alan about actually. Very nice touch.
Mm.
And then when I flipped the
Yeah.
pedal around and like all the sides had like the like side of a VHS and just kind of that, I mean, instantly the colors like the purple and pink and yellow you chose like invoke that like handheld camcorder VHS feeling when I look at them.
Oh yeah.
Just absolutely spot on all across the board. I actually just sent a few pictures of it immediately when I opened it to some friends. I was like, look at how cool this pedal looks all the way around. It's not just the top, it's the side, it's the way it's designed. It's very clever. So I really appreciate the way you do the aesthetics on your pedals.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, we look at a lot of pedals. So when I see one that I really like, I make sure I'm like become a super fan of it really quickly. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah. Back up and say about like the Solaris, one of the things like manufacturing is like getting these enclosures like CNC drilled and powder coated and printed. The I use press-in lenses for those lights. Like they're mounted to the back side of the board, the light LEDs themselves, and then these press-in lenses like get put into the enclosure. And they have such a small tolerance for it won't fit to. Yep, they're just going to fall out. They have to be like just right. And so because it gets drilled and then powder coated, that powder coat kind of fills in the hole a bit. So getting that right is, I really don't have to drill 17 holes per enclosure after buying enclosures. This is basically what it comes down to. So yeah, there's a lot of drills on it. I want to make sure all the drills are right, and make sure it's just as, yeah, I'm not bashing my head in.
Yeah.
With it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
it does make sense,
Yeah.
especially on that one.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say. Then I've got like some other like fun ones I've been doing. Like there's this one called Stutterbug, which is like this. It's like this feedback fuzz. Like it's a fuzz with a feedback loop in it that just makes it sound really meaty, and like it drones like when you're not playing. But the thing is like that I love pedals that do that, but it's also kind of annoying because you're not playing and still like. So I was like, I want to gate that, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't kind of compromise the sound. And that's tricky. It's harder than I thought it would be, because it turns out it's not the, like, when you hit the note, that's not when you hear the feedback. It's the decay. And so if your decay is too fast, adding feedback does nothing. It's a very weird perceptual thing. I didn't realize that it was a temporal effect in that way. But kind of
interesting.
But no, it's a really cool sound. It's just great. It sounds really cool and messed up with double stops and everything. And then it's got this really hard, choppy, trem you can engage, and that it's basically just it sounds like Rage Against the Machine in a box to me. But you can put the trem rate up into the audio range, so it does this weird ring moddy thing. That one's a lot of fun. And then this other one called Chatterbox, which is, it's like a drive pedal, but you can wavefold it. I don't know if you know what that means. It's just this weird, messed up sounding thing. You don't see it a lot in pedals, but it kind of sounds like a pseudo octaving, but also it's sucking the coherence out of a wave and making it sound really shattery. It just sounds like shattering glass to me, so that's why it's called Chatterbox. But
I actually
so friggin' cool.
Those, because all those ones at the top of the coming soon on the site, the Stutterbug called to me immediately, because that idea. I'm a big fuzz fan in general, especially creating the walls of sound that wash into verbs, or after just creating crazy sounds. And the way you have that one set up with the gated feedback loop, that spoke to me. And I watched the demo video of actually each one of those, because I was really intrigued by them. But the Shatterbox to me felt like the one that was I don't think I've quite heard anything do that before.
Yeah.
I was trying to, I don't know if I've either. Usually I'm oh, this reminds me of this type of pedal, or oh, it kind of has elements of this mixed with this. But that one I was I've never heard something that sounds this way. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
That was not the one where coming from how it works came first. I was what would happen if I did this? And so I was just on a breadboard, just playing with doing this. I was oh, that's neat. Let's see what's going on with the waveform. So I put it in an oscilloscope, just looked at it, put a sine wave through. I was oh, that's weird that does that. Okay, that's it. That's the thing. Yeah, I was trying to come up with a circuit to put on my business card to hand out that people could build. So that's where it came from. Then people liked it so much, I was oh, maybe I'll make and so those are basically ones. So it's if you hit me up, I'll build you one. I'm not making a big effort with those though.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of making a distinction between mainline items, which promote, and then stuff that, I don't know, I'm creative. I just like making stuff. So
that's amazing. That's awesome.
I think I've definitely gathered that in our discussion today. So it's and then I've been doing on here. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Yes. Sidewinder.
Yes, I want to talk about that one too, because the ramping preamp. Again, all of these are things where I'm you're answering questions from forums, but I think it's just your brain.
So before we get into that, I just want to state for the record that I did not intentionally decide to name 5 of my pedals things that started with S. It just happened. It's okay, so it's either they've got a number in them, they start with an S, or they're the retro harmonic. That's the pattern here. Okay. So Spadola, Stutterbug, Chatterbox, Sidewinder, Solaris. Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. So Sidewinder. So I think you asked about this in the chat. Is oh, so well, what's up with that Secret Santa thing?
Yes.
So this came from that. So there's a Discord group that we started in late 2018, I think. And there's just a few people at first, but a ton of people have joined, and there's some people that really stay in and talk a lot. And then, but every Christmas we do this big Secret Santa, and tons of people participate, even if they're not regularly involved in chat in the Discord. And I should say it's all pedal builders in the Discord. It's so we basically just make each other pedals, and typically you just make,
that's so cool.
That's really cool.
People will do maybe just a limited colorway, something kind of neat just for the occasion, or some little customization. And some years I do that, some years, if I have a cool idea in the back of my head that I'm like, this is not marketable, this is not something I'm going to try to convince somebody to buy, but I am going to make somebody own this, and Secret Santa is the time to do that. So
that's amazing.
So Sidewinder was like, I think that would have been 2020. And that I was like working on the retro harmonic around that time. I was doing the voltage controlled stuff. And I was like, okay, well, let's take all like the complicated like firmware shit, like all the code that controls like ramping, or am I using CV? Is this like ramping? Which way is it ramping? Like all the complicated stuff out, and just control the drive circuit, just straightforward, and have just a triangle LFO. And so I just set that up. Like it basically worked, the first revision, which like never happens. And
yeah, that's cool as hell too, as an idea.
Yeah. And so, and the joke was tap tempo overdrive. So that's what it is. But I was like, okay, so we're going to, I think the idea of like having ramping from the current knob position either to the bottom and back or to the top and back, I think I probably got that from Chase Bliss because they do it. I don't know how I'd say I'd improve their system, but I'm also not really like a huge fan of it just from a user interface standpoint. So I wanted to make it a bit clearer. So what I came up with was having like all the knobs in a row, just drive, bass, moderate, treble, level. And then underneath each of everything except the mod rate, I have a 3-way switch. So if it's in the center, that parameter does not ramp. If it's flicked to left, the parameter ramps from the center or the knob position downwards and back. And rightwards, you can probably guess, upwards and back.
Yeah.
And then, you can control the rate with the rate knob, with your tap tempo, or with a MIDI clock, allegedly. I haven't actually tested that. But
I do. I will say, everything else works on. One of my big frustrations with the Chase Bliss pedals, which I love their pedals, but when you have pedals on a pedal board, those little dip switches are not always accessible to you if you want to change stuff on the fly or make a sound. So the idea of sort of top mounting the ability to flip things in and out of the ramp is actually very cool. I just pulled up the website again to look at that while you were talking about it. That's like a neat, an elegant solution actually that kind of just adds some more stuff there that at first glance looks like a design element. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, like even on the retro harmonic, like, you got some people like hate this, but like I use like secondary, like parameter style thing to control the ramping. Like what ramps? Like you just hold down the ramp button, and while you're holding it down, you turn the knob in question. And if it's like right, like at a certain point of turning a rightward, those two LEDs at the top, one like flicks off, one flicks red, and that kind of tells you, okay, well, I'm like ramping this way now. If they both flash, that means I'm ramping, not ramping. If you turn it like all the way down, the left one will flash red.
Oh yeah.
Flash off. Like, and so it's like the visual feedback is there, and it's all on the top. It's right in front of you. And yes, I know some people hate secondaries, but if you're buying something with 8 knobs, you should probably be okay with some complexity.
Yeah, you can't knob per function in a pedal this size. Yeah. You're getting the pedal board real estate with the ability to. I like that too. The alt that it just corresponds to the knob that it is. So it's not a problem for me. I'm into that.
No. Yeah.
Remembering them all, that's always like hard for me. I usually have the manuals close by when I'm learning a pedal.
Yeah. I mean, there are some secondaries that I've like, my opinion on secondaries, or my philosophy of secondaries, is they're generally things that should be set and forget. Ramping gets a little bit different, of course, but the ramping, I mean, it corresponds to the knob you're using, so you don't really have to remember much. You just like, I want to ramp level. Well, I hold down thing and turn the level knob. But like other things, like there's like, listen to the MIDI clock or don't, like is like secondary for the level control. So yeah, I mean, like, you're gonna have to look that up, but it's not something you're gonna be changing all the time. So whatever.
Right.
Yeah, or like on the tone, you can change it. So the bass doesn't modulate, only the treble does, or vice versa, or they both do. Or the drive is like, is it like hard preamp or soft preamp? Yeah.
Wow.
But
that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was Sidewinder, and the guy loved it. He just like loved it. And I was always like, I should I should make this not a large sideways pedal because just for real estate purposes, and like actually like try to sell a few. And I just never did. And I was like, then somebody like kept asking me for one. I was like, okay, I kind of want to do a redesign on it. And he just like, then a couple other people learned about it and they started bugging me. I was like, oh, fine, I'll just make more using the same layout. I mean, I don't hate the layout. It's just on a demo board, it's very different from the rest. It's just the sideways thing. But people seem to really like it. It's fun. I don't know if it's practical, but it's a lot of fun. And it's really fun to like overlay on other stuff. And because a preamp sounds really good. It's like this really nice like JFET preamp. And it's sort of in the style of those Catalan Bred amp series pedals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's really nice sounding. And
very cool.
Yeah, and just this past year, like I did another one for the Secret Santa that was a sequenced delay, and it's the stupidest sounding pedal in the world, and it's lovely. It's also actually sideways, a big sideways box, and so it's an 8-step sequencer, and it sequences the delay time. So you basically get a bunch of dumb pitch shifts that sound ridiculous. And it's got these like, one like little plastic knob for each step, and then a light above the knob tell you which one you're on. And so you set the delay time at each step, and then you can set like how quickly it steps through.
So setting the delay time at each step is kind of akin, if I think about this, to like if you were moving your time knob every time you hit another step of the sequence. So
right.
You can get there was a feature on the old I guess it's reissued now, the Memory Man Tap Tempo 1100, where you could like hold down the tap division and it would move through, and it feels like similar to that, but instead of divisions, it's the actual time on each sequence. Is that what I'm understanding correctly there?
Yeah, okay, basically,
interesting. That's an interesting thing.
Okay, so no, I was making this working on this delay for a freelance client, and I did divisions using like illuminated push buttons, and it wasn't like I ended up not going that way. We ended up going with like a rotary switch, but having that was like, oh, this is cool because you can do like pitch jumping just by pressing the buttons really quickly, and like changing it around. It was really fun. So I was like, it'd be cool to like sequence that, and so I was trying to do that. And it sounds so dumb though, so dumb. And I was like, this sounds like a brain damaged Therme. And so
it seems like the kind of thing though that I would love to play with and just like play it and mangle it into other stuff, because that's like, I don't know, sounds cool.
Yeah, but so I was talking to John from Electro Audio Experiments, because we always talk like just kind of like in like a sidebar, like DMs from the group. Just kind of run ideas past him or tell him when I come up with something especially stupid. It was like, okay, I've got these two stupid ideas. Which one's funnier? And actually, that's what I did. Because I was like, okay, so sequenced voltage control filter or sequenced delay. He's like, sequenced delay. I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this. It's gonna sound like a really idiotic Therme though. What would be a good name for it?
Yeah, that is kind of what I was thinking. Like, it sounds like elements of that pedal, but somehow more and less controllable at the same time.
So I used my graphic design skills for evil, and I went and got like the word mark of the Therme from the Chase Plus website, and then I just like put it into Illustrator, traced it, and then did editing and made it say Theranos.
Oh yes, yes. I saw this online.
Yes,
online.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And then I basically just like did an enclosure design that with that on it, and then I was like, wait, no, I should check with Joel about this. So I either texted or emailed Joel. I was like, hey, like if you're not cool with this, like that's totally fine. Just wanted to make sure it's gonna be okay. Because like this was just because I was gonna be staying in the Chase Plus Airbnb like that December for the Oklahoma show. So I was like, okay, let's not have an awkward visit. And so he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. As long as you make me one too. I was like, yeah, all right.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I ended up getting COVID, so I couldn't make the show. But he still got his pedal, I just didn't get to deliver it in person. But yeah, so that was that one. And yeah, no, and besides that, I've been doing a lot of like freelance for other companies, which can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times it's just like trying to get somebody else, like taking words from people who use words to describe sounds, which is already an abstraction, and putting that into design specs and like goals, which is an interesting exercise. Yeah, sometimes it's harder than other times. But yeah, no, some people like I really love working with. Like I really like having the freedom of not having to think, how would I market this? So it's like, oh no, I just need to get this to work.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you've given us a really fantastic rundown of a lot of the things that you have coming out and that you're working on. So I want to segue over to our rapid fire questions and ask you a couple things. The segue there being that we're going to talk about some other people's pedals for just a quick second. Got a couple quick questions. First thing pops into your head. You don't have to think about it too hard. It's all good. You ready?
I am ready whenever you are.
All right, fantastic. So here is the first question. What was your very first pedal?
Oh, I don't remember. Oh, no, I do. It would have been a wah pedal that my guitar teacher lent me in 10th grade. It was really scratchy in the middle, though. So I was like, with my friend who played guitar, and he was like, it's really scratchy in the middle, though. And I was like, yeah, I know. And so I gave it back to my guitar teacher. It was not a profound experience.
Nice.
So a wah pedal with a scratchy pot or a physical scratch, to make sure I understand that there.
Sorry, is the word itchy or scratchy? Is it
scratchy?
Yeah, scratchy. Yeah.
Yeah, scratchy.
Yeah, it was like in the middle.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Not exactly. Not that sound exactly, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. What is your current favorite pedal?
Ooh. I mean, okay. That's of any pedal. I have to say the ones I'm working on. Like, I mean, I cater to my own tastes, but if not mine, what is my favorite pedal? Boy, that's tough. Eternal favorites, I guess. The Therme, I've never figured out how to use it in a musical way that like works with what I play, but just implementation wise, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Spaceman Sputnik is just one of the coolest fuzzes around, and I don't think it'll ever be topped. Those are my eternal top two, I think.
Wow, nice.
Oh, and anything like John from Electronic Audio Experiments makes, like, he has great ears and he's a brilliant dude. I don't think you can top his shit. My favorite, I think, like companies like have this like different, like they're different places on the spectrum or within like the region created by these like attributes, but like they're smart people. Like they're people who actually know what they're doing. They're not just rehashing old stuff. They're trying to make like things that are like at least like original or kind of out there. Like they're obviously not, again, rehashing old stuff. So they've got the ideas, the capability, and and they're fun. Like they have a sense of fun to them. I don't know, utilitarian pedals, conservative companies that only was like, well, this is our tube screamer.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Did you need to make
the repackaging? And I feel like for me too, just because I've been playing with effects pedals for so very long now, that it's kind of hard to like, I don't know. There's so many companies where you can see a thing kind of, you're like, yeah, I've played like 5 iterations of this. So when you find a company where like each thing they come out with brings like a sense of wonder again, it feels like Christmas morning as a child, where you're like, oh wow, that actually that's something I want to play with and like experiment with. And there are definitely the builders out there, which, I mean, I gotta say, not to just like continue, but this, as soon as I plugged the T120 in, and I did tell Alan this, I sat with this pedal for like 45 minutes and just like found new sounds with it, which my attention span is not always that easy. So great work on making a fun thing.
Oh, the fun is always like one of the most important things. Like there's that sense of play that needs to be inspired, and if something like that's something like the retro harmonic like is taking so long because like I think I've finally gotten it with like the patterns and extra shapes and just like the specific combination of things I've got going now. Like I'm really happy it has the right amount of like awe and play and just like draws you, and you can sit down and have fun with it. It's not something you add, like, I mean, you can add it on to what you're already playing, but it's more like it makes you want to explore and play. Like, that's more important to me.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. So
Alan, I think you have one more question. Yeah, sorry. We went on a tangent about cool things.
Yeah, sorry for being cool.
Yeah, how dare you? Who inspires you to try out new gear? It could be another manufacturer. It could be an artist. Who inspires you?
Oof. So I guess I should admit I mostly play like fingerstyle on acoustic when I play. So trying out new gear, I don't know. Like I'm generally more. I come from this is tricky. Like I generally don't layer effects on my playing or on something I'm already playing. I use them to inspire creative playing. So something like laying down a rhythm for me, or like a delay, like playing back to me, or even like just a fuzz sounding dope and seeing like what double stops sound like, or what dissonance sounds like with different settings. Maybe running something through a feedback loop. I enjoy that, but that's more sound making than it is or experimental. I don't know. Music covers a broad swath of things, even including things I wouldn't define as music. But
yeah,
no, that's a tough one because if I'm playing, I'm generally like, I don't know. I'm more about just like, I want to play ragtime fingerstyle shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But implementation, like inspired by like effect, its implementation is like, that's a really like freaking cool idea. Like I want to think through how they decided like on this user interface and how that changes what's actually physically going on. And that's what inspires me. So like a lot of the older Chase Bliss stuff, like they're still very cool, but I'm getting into like learning how to do DSP, but it's my brain shuts off a little bit when I start thinking about it too hard. So I'm not really there. I also don't know how to use like micro loopers and all that, and all the new stuff. Seems like micro loopers, and seems like there's an audience for this. That's brilliant. I'm not going to knock that. It's just not something I have the patience to learn. I don't think. But
of course,
that kind of stuff, like that's really cool to me. All of like John's stuff is really cool to me. I really love analog delays more for the implementation than for the sound. Like the sound's also great, but creative like uses of old technology, I don't know, that's all really cool to me.
I don't know. I'm just thinking through, like, as a designer or as a pedal builder yourself, like I could totally see getting something and just really wanting to understand the how and letting that be its own inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, like in the back of my mind, often like there's the like kind of joke where it's like somebody talks about like what kind of music they're playing with the pedals. Like, this sounds great for this kind of thing. And it's like, I'm like, do you use pedals for music? That's disgusting. This is for noise, sir.
It is funny. I know one of our buddies we had on a few episodes ago was talking about how sometimes pedals, and he might have said this offline, but sometimes he buys pedals just for inspiration, similar to what you said, as opposed to necessarily creation of music. And I know for myself, even, I have a ton of different delays and reverbs and trems and choruses and fuzzes. But at the end of the day, when I'm writing, especially if I'm writing, like, I write mainly two styles of music. I have like spacey ambient math rock or shoegaze music, and then I write some singer songwriter stuff, which is just like acoustic guitar and piano. And for most of, like, if I'm singing and playing, I have like a drive pedal, a compressor, and like a reverb. That's all I really use. Maybe like a slapback delay. And that's it. But I have all these other ones that are just here and they inspire. And
well, I think that goes back to like the conservative companies that like maybe have like larger marketing budget, like they're selling more product. It makes sense that they're not making weird stuff or creative stuff because they're trying to sell to most people, and most people aren't doing experimental music. They just want a thing that sounds good and is reliable and is like maybe a bit cool and looks good. So like Walrus or JHS or whatever, it's like there's nothing wrong with that. It makes sense that they're doing that. It's not appealing to me but I'm very much in a niche position here. I'm not the market. So yeah.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So, well, I do feel like we could talk for like the rest of the day, Steve. Which I feel like we might have to talk again. Maybe we get maybe when pedals can be sampled and we figure out all the technical things. But because I want to give you a chance for everybody to hear this awesome stuff of yours. Because I know we don't in the States. Not everybody can get their hands on it at like a local shop. So I would love for more people to hear your stuff and get it out to our audience. So we'll talk.
Yeah.
But
And anybody who's looking for stuff, I don't think we got into it, but I do a lot of like freelance design. Actually, I should mention I've got this really me and a guy. The company's called Talon Electronic, and they're doing a couple of pedals with different like bands. So they're kind of like I don't know what the word for that is, but so there's one like this band called Alpha Wolf, and we've been working on this one that is DSP based, and it's like this weird friggin' octaver thing where you hold down the one's foot switch and it kind of ramps up to this octave, but like overlays this vibrato and resonance, and yeah, just pitch bending and dissonance as well. Like so, like the implementation of this was a lot of fun, and then the other foot switch just like ramps up to a double octave, and then you release and it comes back down. And so that's actually coming out pretty soon. So look at that. I think the pedal's called The Noise. And then we're working on another one with a band called State Champs. And it's like a drive, but it's also a pitch shifter. And so, oh, wow. Like learning the theory and the like practice behind pitch shifting with any sort of fidelity is way more complicated than you expect. It's insane level of math. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun. But the reason I brought up the freelance, I think, is because that I'm doing a lot of freelance work. I really don't have the time to like build just for the sake of building to stock my like online shop. So generally, like what I do is build orders. So if anybody like is interested in buying something, just reach out to me by email over Instagram, and like happy to build to order for you people if I have the things for what they're looking for.
Love it.
Awesome. No, we'll definitely plug that. It's funny, Steve. There have been 3 times on this episode where I was like, because Alan and I chat, make sure we like ask people the questions and get things out. And I was going to ask about Secret Santa. You segued into it. And I was going to ask if you had anything you wanted to plug, and you segued into it. So you can just host our episodes now on.
I love it. It'd be great.
Totally fine by me.
Literally 10 minutes before we were supposed to go on, but then we had technical difficulties, so probably half an hour before we came on. I was like, I should make a list of things to talk about. So I just like wrote out some like stuff because I was like, I'm not going to remember. So that ended up being a very good idea.
Yes, absolutely love it. And honestly, anytime you want to come back and chat more about stuff, I would love to have you. This has been an awesome conversation. I regret that we have to wrap up because we have other things to do, but I want to really, really appreciate it. We'll make sure we link to all your stuff. And we will, I'm going to reach out to you after this about, getting my hands on a retro harmonic and a Selena as soon as they're available. Solara, sorry.
Steve, thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure. It was a pleasure to be here. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to our interview with Steve. Man, it was, we ran out of time, that we ran up against the clock, and I think there's just so much more that we wanted to talk about and hear him talk about. So we'll definitely have him on again for sure. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you all. It was great talking with Steve. And if you are a Patreon subscriber of ours, we have something very cool coming out this Friday. If you are not a patron and you have a Maris LVX, I definitely think you should check out what we have coming on Friday. Thank you all. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.